Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're talking about some of my favorite books, some book recommendations from me to you. I read quite a bit, like not a crazy amount, but quite a bit, and I feel like lately I've hit some really good books. Like I've been quite lucky, and I'd give you some recommendations. Some of these books I read really recently. One of them I finished like literally an hour ago, and others I read a few years ago, but they really marked me. So I want to speak about those two. This is in absolutely no particular order. It's how I found them in my little bookshelves. My bookshelves. And yeah, let's get right into it. The first book on my stack is none other than Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote, I think. Great book. I feel like most people know of it because of the movie, and the movie's great also. Audrey Hepburn's amazing in it. I read this about a year ago, and it recounts the story of this young, kind of crazy woman in New York living from day to day, from man to man, and she's really something, but she's genuinely so charming that I ate this book up. The writing's really good, and it's really a captivating novel. It's a bit confusing at times, like there's some moments where I wasn't exactly sure what was going on, but I think I'd give it a reread and see if that's changed as I've aged and grown the wiser. But definitely a recommendation. Is short also, which I think is nice sometimes, especially if you're trying to get back into the habit of reading. A short book is preferred rather than a long one. The next book is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. It's a beautiful book. I read it last winter, and I think it's definitely more of a full winter book. It's very gothic and beautiful. Um, I thought I knew what to expect when I started it, but it completely blew my expectations away. It was so intriguing and intelligent. Such a beautiful book. I'll read you the blurb. Working as a paid companion to a bitter elderly lady, the timid heroine of Rebecca, we never know her name, learns her place. Life is bleak until on a trip to the south of France she falls in love with Maxime de Winter, a handsome widower whose proposal takes her by surprise. Whisked from Monte Carlo to Manderley Maxime's isolated Cornish estate, the friendless young bride begins to realize that she barely knows her husband at all, and in every corner of every room is a phantom of his beautiful first wife, Rebecca. Beautiful, literally haunting, gorgeous novel. Then, and look at my copy, I think it's gorgeous. A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. I don't think this will be everyone's cup of tea, but I loved it and I recommended it to two friends who loved it as well. My mom hated it, so I don't think it's for everyone, but I think it's gorgeous. It's about, okay, Dorothy loves sex as much as she loves food, and while she has struggled to find a long term partner that can keep up with her, she makes the best of her single life, frequently traveling from Manhattan to Italy for a taste of both. But there is something within Dorothy that is different from everybody else, and having suppressed it long enough, she starts to embrace what makes Dorothy uniquely, terrifyingly herself. Recounting life from a seemingly idyllic farm to table childhood to the heights of her career, to the moment she plunges an ice pick into a man's neck on Fire Island, Dorothy Daniel shows us what happens when a woman finally embraces her superiority. A satire of early foodieism, a critique of how gender is defined, and a showcase of virtuoso storytelling. A Certain Hunger introduces us to the food world's most charming psychopaths and an exciting new voice in fiction. Gorgeous. It's so beautiful. Basically, it's this woman who's cannibalistic and she's a food critic. The food critic part got to me. I'm a vegetarian and I have been for 7 years now, and this made me want to eat meat. I know it's a satire, but the way she spoke about that glazed duck made me want to dig at it. Like, oh, so good, beautiful, a bit twisted. You could probably tell from the blurb. Gorgeous book though. Would definitely recommend. And look at the cover. I'm a sucker for a pretty cover. I mean, I'm an art student, so then I read my first Anna Nin book last month. I read A Spy in the House of Love, and I loved it. Anna Nin is initially an erotica writer, but erotica not in the sense of like the after series erotica in a kind of dark and slightly twisted way. I want to read so much more of her. I think she's one of those authors who really pushed the boundaries for her genre. She was banned for so long, like crazy. But this book is not erotica, although you can tell she's an erotic writer. It's about our lead, whose name I can't remember. Sabrina. It's about Sabrina, who's in a long-term relationship but is always seeking these affairs, and it's beautiful because it perfectly marries the excitement of the affair with the absolutely horrific guilt she feels during, before, and afterwards. So she feels like she cannot live with only her husband. She feels like there's versions of him, of herself, that he does not see. Beautiful book. It puts a lot of things into perspective. There's talk about like desire when it comes to race. For instance, she falls for this African American man who's like, it's not me you want, it's my skin color and exotic origins. Genuinely such a gorgeous book. And the writing, let me find you some nice parts, because the writing in this, the first time he looked at her, he had felt everything will burn. Imagine being spoken about that way. Imagine. I thought I turned it off. Imagine someone seeing you and thinking that. Ooh. I think this captures quite well what I was saying before. It was as if he had thrown a net around her by the pleasure she wanted again, by his creation of a Sabina she wanted to erase, by a poison he alone had the cure for, of a mutual guilt which only an act of love could transmute into something else than a one-night encounter with a stranger. The moon mocked her as she woke back to her empty bed. Gorgeous, gorgeous. I really want to read her journals as well, and more of erotica, although I heard some of it's really twisted because she's known for having had like a voluntarily incestual act with her father. Yeah, she's a bit something, and nice name, but like as a full grown adult, this was not an abusive relationship. It was her choice. Yeah, no comment. But I want to read more upon her because she fascinates me genuinely. Also, I saw some photos of her online of some like photo shoot she did, and she was so cool. She was such an it girl of her time. I'll try to put a photo. I don't know if I can do that. I'll try. If not, look ines.blanche, preferably on Pinterest. Just find the photo I found. She is so cool. She is so cool. Frankenstein by Marie Shelley. I only read this recently, again in full. This is such a full to winter read. If you're watching this now, summer is approaching. Don't read it right now. Wait. So worth it. Gorgeous book. I love Frankenstein. It was deep. It was beautiful. It was so weird because in one sense it was really cold and dark and gloomy, definitely gothic literature. But on the other side, it felt a bit like a cup of Earl Grey, like a warm cup of tea. Gorgeous book. Let me find you some of this. There's no blurb. There is a blurb. I think everyone kind of knows the plot of it though. Like Victor Frankenstein he wants to recreate life, but he creates the monster, which we know is Frankenstein, but obviously that's not the monster's real name. The Frankenstein is the doctor, blah, blah, and he's ugly. My friend said the other day about someone. She said "fugolicious," and it's my new favorite term. The monster is fugolicious, and so he's like, "Ew, you fugly beast! Like, be gone." And then the fugly beast. I won't tell you the whole plot, but he's so sad and abandoned and lost, and he really tries. He really tries to connect to humans, and they're all superficial as can be and think he's fugolicious too, and they're like, "Get gone." And then he gets mad, and he's mad at Dr. Frankenstein for creating him and then abandoning him because he's ugly, because Frankenstein made him ugly. So he slowly comes for Frankenstein's family. It deepens Frankenstein's belief that he is in fact bad. But what Frankenstein doesn't realize is that he made the monster bad. Anyway, gorgeous book. Let me read you some lines. I found two, but there's so many more. Feelings became calmer, if it may be called calmness, when the violence of rage sinks into the depth of despair. Come on. How mutable are our feelings, and how strange is that clinging love we have of life, even in the excess of misery. Gorgeous. Then this is a book I read years ago and I've since recommended to everyone I know, my mom included, my grandma included, my friends included, everyone. City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. She was my favorite author for a really long time. It's about this young girl who gets to New York, and she's in the theater industry because that's where her aunt does for a living, and she goes a bit crazy. It's a coming of age story, and it discusses friendships, first experiences with sex and love, and final experiences and connection, and it's gorgeous. I so recommend it. One thing that really struck me with this book is her capacity to make you feel as though you are in New York in the 1940s. I think she does an insane amount of research from what I gathered watching interviews. I really like her as an author, but gorgeous, gorgeous book. Then one of my favorite books ever, which I don't have on me because I lent someone the copy and I can't remember who, and they've never given it back. If this is you and you're watching and my copy of Bonjour Tristesse by François Sagan is somewhere in your room, I am deeply offended. Anyway, beautiful book by François Sagan, my lord, a French author who was only 17, I think, when she wrote this gorgeous book. It's also coming of age. It's this 18-year-old girl who's a bit lazy, and she's in south of France, and she's meant to be studying for her final exams, which she failed the first time. But instead, she has a story with a lover, and her dad's a bit promiscuous. Her dad's a widow, and he's very with the woman, and there's a bunch of drama, and I need to read you the blurb because I don't think I'm giving it any justice right now. Let me find it. Alright, by the same author as well, if you like this. This is such an intimate read. I don't know actually if they have it in English, but they have Écris-moi vite et longuement, which are the letters she wrote to her dear friend Véronique Campion back in the days. I think in the 50s. I actually don't know. From right as François Sagan was, in the 50s, right as she was rising to fame, traveling the world, promoting her book. Beautiful. I read this in the afternoon and I loved it, but I also have a deep, deep love for François Sagan as an author. The next two are the most recent I read from this list. The first one being The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Gorgeous. Also, look at my copy. Beautiful. It's like, yeah. The story of a very superficial young man who gets his portrait painted when he's gorgeous by this artist who is in love with him a little bit. And that same afternoon, he utters these words, saying he wishes he would not be tainted by age and life. And somehow this happens, and any sin he commits, any sorrow he experiences, any mark fading line that should have come to his body instead taints his painting. And because he does not see the effects of his life, he turns into this very sinful and horrible man. I think Oscar Wilde had such a way with words. This is the first thing I found. The true romantic background was everything, or almost everything. Doesn't that give off aesthetic vibes? It's also a bit like, it's a bit, I guess, a satire on hedonism. Yeah, not a satire, more of a commentary. There's a lot of pressure. I feel like I need to give you guys something great. It's a great novel. You should read it instead. That'll prove my point. Read it. We women, as someone says, love with our ears, just as you men love with your eyes, if you ever love at all. Each time that one loves is the only time one has ever loved. That's so gorgeous. And the last book on my recommendation, which realistically you've probably read already, is Call Me by Your Name by Andre. Is it Ackerman? Is it Assiman? I just finished that today. It was insane. I love the movie. I've seen it twice, both times in old little cinema here in my little town. Gorgeous movie. The cinematography is insane. The story beautiful. Everything is gorgeous. And I read the book, and I must say I think I liked it more than the movie. I just thought the end was a bit long. I have so many opinions because this is a very fresh read. Beautiful. His mind is tormented by it, and the author captures that so beautifully. The writing's beautiful. It's insane. I didn't highlight anything because it's my sister's copy, but I'm sure you could stop on a random page and find something gorgeous. And he captures the complexities of love and forbidden love and love during youth and the little games we play so beautifully. It made me want to fall in love again and again and again. And Call Me by Your Name is such a spring and summer read, so you need to get it right now. And it's beautiful. I genuinely think if you dislike it, you're wrong. Something's wrong. Yeah, what do you read? And I don't know what I'm reading next. I need to decide that tonight. I've been tiptoeing myself into more classics, and I'm trying to find more what my style is in books because I've been reading a really wide variety of books this year, and I want to read more. I want to read so much more. There's just one quote. Who wrote it? about how I'll never read all the books I want to read, or see the movies I want to see, or discover the places I want to discover, never related to anything more in my life. If you have any recommendations for me, please let me know down below. I'd love to. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. I'm thinking of doing more videos like this where we just talk a bit. So I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you to my friends for my little mics. I hope you enjoyed the good quality. See you soon. Bye bye.